Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS Special Series 59 Days of Healing, where we explore one maxim from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 points for healing dualistic mind, each day to integrate the practice into our lives. Today is day 17, the first day of point 4, which is Enrich Every Moment. Maxim 17 reads, the crux of the key instructions is to invoke 5 forces. Key instructions is a technical term in Tibetan Buddhism, which refers to condensing things down into a very pithy, accessible, understandable instruction that we can carry around. The keys to open doors to spiritual progress. And the key instructions here refers to the key instructions for enriching every moment, which is the title of point 4. How we enrich our lives. The 5 forces are: first, impetus; second, habituation; third, wholesome seeds; fourth, refraining; and fifth, aspiration. What do each of these mean, and how do they serve as ways to enrich every moment in our life? Impetus is the force that drives our actions. It's the thing that comes even before intention. It's the drive, the motive that sparks an intention. And then that intention is typically what leads to an action, sometimes impulsive, sometimes more considered, whatever it may be. This first force is saying that one of the ways we can enrich every moment in our life is being aware of the impetus that is driving our actions, so that we're not just acting robotically out of impulse, but allowing that impetus to come out into the light so that we can see, is this something that will serve me? Is this something healing, transformative, and transcending? Or is this actually not something that is helpful for me? Then we can craft a more creative way of setting up an intention in alignment with what we wish for ourselves. Next is habituation. We all know what habituation it's like. When we fall into a habit, a very strong habit, we're very likely to continue acting in the same way as that habit that we've created. Habituation has an important meaning here because the word that's usually translated as meditation from the Tibetan, gom, means to habituate, to cultivate familiarity with. Habituation that we think of in a very mundane context is also something that operates when we are engaged in formal practice. Meditation is the way of cultivating familiarity with our mind, really becoming intimate with mind, both in its immediate ways, when it's acting a little bit nutty, when it's sad, when it's angry. What all of these things do to that tranquility, lucidity, and ease that's natural to mind. Meditation is what allows us to let the superficial stuff rise and separate and allow us to rest in that natural state of mind. From there, we can cultivate familiarity further, seeing how mind operates, looking at its nature, how thoughts are impermanent, how literally anything less than manifesting our true nature is necessarily suffering, and how all the things we take to be a truly existent self are actually events, non-self, things that happen, not who we are. So habituation is a very important force here because the way we think, the way we act, the way we meditate is continuing to instill an inclination to do more of the same in future. Working with habituation allows us to align with our highest aspirations. Then the next are very related. Planting wholesome seeds is the force that yields positivity. Anything that feels genuinely good. Giving to people who are in need feels good. Loving feels good. Being patient may make us feel uncomfortable, But when we really slip back, we realize how kind it is to us and others when we're magnanimous towards everyone, understanding circumstances, and so forth. Any kind of actions, which in Buddhism are called virtuous, positive actions that yield joyful results, is what is meant by planting wholesome seeds. Then refraining refers to the opposite. We avoid negativity and misconduct. Now we can start to see how these five forces start to interact with one another. Maybe we've fallen into the habit of talking behind people's backs. There's the habituation. Let's say we feel that this is something we'd like to work on. Refraining is the initial way that we work with that. We just make a promise to ourselves to do our best to avoid that conduct. In its place, we plant wholesome seeds. Maybe in that context, we say positive things about people, or frankly, run into a closet if we have to stop from speaking behind someone's back. Basically, anything that helps reinforce this new habit. We're seeing how those three forces are working together. The last is a beautiful one. Aspiration is that force that yearns for the highest meaning and purpose. It's not referring to just a very wishy-washy kind of thing. It's really feeling how wonderful it would be if all beings could be happy without fear that it will end, that all beings can be free of suffering without the worry that it will return. This aspiration is a very easy way to enrich every moment because we can turn the most mundane of tasks into incredibly powerful moments. For example, I open the door. Without anybody knowing what I'm doing, I can think, may I open the door for all beings to enter into Buddhahood. Anything that we do, washing the dishes, may I clear away all of the impediments to myself and all beings experiencing complete happiness and freedom from suffering, and so forth. Knock yourself out. This is where you can be as elaborate, as poetic, as extravagant as you'd like to be. It will fill your mind with higher purpose, with joy, with contentment, and the absolute uncontrollable wish to do more for yourself and everyone you encounter in a joyful way.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. One question that I have is how do we know what's wholesome and what's harmful? Because I feel like sometimes I find ways of rationalizing things. And so, how do we know that what we're doing is aligned appropriately?
This is a wonderful question, and it does require a lot of self inquiry and sometimes painful honesty with ourselves. It depends on where we are. Wholesome means what aligns with the true nature of things. In Buddhism, wholesome doesn't mean what the Buddha says to do, and what the Buddha says not to do is unwholesome. He does say these are good things to do and these are not so good things to do out of his own experience of the impact that these events have on mind. When we're in a place where we can feel that impact, it's very easy. It's very clear. When we're not, when we have enough self-knowledge to realize we might kid ourselves or we might be slippery and allow ourselves some slack that maybe later we wish we hadn't. That's when these descriptions of what is good to do and what is not so great to do come in handy. So, for example, the Buddha talks about 10 virtues and non-virtues. There are 3 of the body, 4 of the speech, and 3 of the mind. Do not kill, but save life. Do not take what is not given, but give. Do not engage in sexual conduct that harms others, but sexuality that is joyful and replenishing for oneself and others. Then the ones for speech are referred to not lying, but telling the truth, not engaging in idle chatter, but being meaningful in our intentionality when we speak, not engaging in harsh speech, but speaking with kindness, and not engaging in divisive speech, but using our words to bring people together. The three of the mind refer to, it's literally not being covetous, not having ill will or malice towards others, but having a sense of benevolence towards oneself and everyone, and also not engaging in what are called wrong views. Basically, views that prevent us from healing, transforming, and transcending, and instead keep us swirling in negativity. These frameworks are there when we might kid ourselves. They're good supports so that we have something to gauge our conduct against.
That reminds me that one of the clues for myself that I might be engaging in something harmful is if I need to have a rationalization for it. So if my mind is actually running this tape of justifying my behavior, that's a good reminder to me that this might be problematic.
Exactly. That's one of the ways that we can see what happens when we aren't in alignment with mind's natural state. Again, if the habituation is such that we're used to whatever negativity, maybe we're used to killing animals or stealing or having malicious intent, it may be harder to notice those things because of habit. They feel normal. But as soon as we start moving towards aspiring to a higher purpose, a more wholesome way of being, we will start to notice when the mind is starting to rationalize. We all have our tell. This is why habituation is such an important force. Cultivation on and off the cushion of familiarity with our mind is what allows us to say, hey, I know what that is. That's my tell. This is how I know that I'm evading something that is actually good for me, or I'm about to step into something that I know isn't.
I'm going to take you up on that invitation to be creative in thinking about aspirations because it is winter and I'm a little cold. And so I put on a scarf today and I thought, oh, maybe when I put on a scarf, I can think, oh, this is not just warming my neck, but actually warming my speech so that my speech is warm and positive. I really appreciate that invitation and want to echo that invitation to all of our listeners to come up with, and if you want to, share with us your aspirations.
Yeah, I would love to see Facebook and Instagram explode with aspirations instead of some of the stuff that's on there sometimes. Having these beautiful ways of framing our conduct, connecting the most simple everyday things to the transcendent that's already present right there. It's not like we're making something up. We're just recognizing the fullness of what's already present.
This has been Yeshe and Tanya on day 17 of Prajna Sparks special series, 59 Days of Healing. Tune in daily for more maxims from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 Points for Healing Dualistic Mind. Check the episode notes for more resources and email us, sparks@prajnafire.com, with any questions. May all beings benefit.